Welcome back to the C.T.W. podcast. I'm your host, Deronquez Wynn, and I thank you guys for tuning in again. I appreciate everyone who has liked, commented, subscribed, and shared the podcast. And then before we start the episode, I want to ask for one thing: that this episode helps you in any way, or you think it may help someone. I ask that you just share it with them. I ask that you may repost it. But yeah, that's the only thing I ask going into the episode. Just share it with somebody, like, comment, and subscribe. Please continue to do it. I appreciate all you guys' support. This episode, I wanted to talk about why people quit when things get hard. Most of us, if not all of us, at some point in our life has quit something. And it doesn't have to be a physical thing. Sometimes we can quit mentally. Sometimes we can quit spiritually. Sometimes we can quit financially. Sometimes we can get so far in a hole that we just stop trying to fight out of it. Sometimes we can quit health-wise. There comes a point where, if not majority of us, if not all of us, have quit at something in our lives. And what I've learned in my personal life from doing introspection and self-reflection is that when that mindset of quitting comes about, it normally comes from a place of selfishness and a place of just me. It doesn't have. And so before I say that, I do want to say that I am talking about things that are geared towards your goals, things that are geared towards the vision that you have for yourself, things that are geared towards your dreams, things that are geared towards your purpose, things that are geared towards the things that you feel God has placed on you. And so I'm not talking about everything. I am talking about the things that are going to produce purpose in your life, things that are going to allow you to have fulfillment. And so I do want to say that before I go any further. And so when it comes to those things in your life, and when things get so hard that you now are like, okay, I don't think what I am enduring is worth what I really want. And there comes a point where that crosses your mind. I think it crosses everyone's mind, every great person's mind, everyone who has ever reached their purpose or their promise or where they were supposed to be or where they wanted to be. It has crossed all of our minds. But the difference between them and the people that never get to it is that the people that endured it, the people that went through it, they decided to keep going and understand that it was a bigger purpose besides themselves. And I think that's one of the biggest things that leads people to either quit or to either stay the course. And the reason that I say that is because there are situations and circumstances that happen in your life when you're going towards your goal, your dream, and your purpose that are not very favorable. That are not things that you want to endure as you're going to it. And I wish I could tell you that your life shouldn't be that way. But from my research of the Bible and from studying the Bible, even Jesus let us know that we were going to experience trials and tribulations. We were going to go through hardships in this life. And so when it comes to going towards the purpose and the goal, the dream and the vision that you have for your life, and things start to become extremely hard, you have to be aware of, you need to endure it. You need to go through it in order to get to the purpose, the dream, the goal, and the vision. And when you don't endure it, you start to develop certain thought processes and mindsets that now form that makes it easier for you to quit. You now start to give yourself an excuse or a way out to say, you know what, it was harder than I expected. You know what, this is something that I did not understand I was going to have to do before I got in this situation. And in that moment, I would ask or give perspective or idea change of it's understanding that there is a bigger responsibility for you to accomplish your goal and your purpose than you. is bigger than you when you're going after something as far as your goals, your dreams, your visions, as far as getting to the purpose that God has called you for. It's bigger than you. And what a lot of us have done when we're going towards the dream, the purpose, and the vision, when things start to become unfavorable for us, is that we decide to say, this is too hard for me. I don't think I want to endure this. I don't like the way this is going. And one thing that I would like to give a perspective on is that switching your mindset to understand that this is something that I need to go through in order to allow people to be freed, allow people to have a blueprint on what to do in this stage of their life. You have to understand that your life is not just for you. Your life is a blueprint to allow other people to see what they need to do when they encounter the same situations and circumstances. And that's the whole reason that God sent Jesus to die for us. That is the reason that God sent Jesus in the flesh for us, so that we can have a representation of how we need to live our lives out on earth. And Jesus is a perfect representation of how we need to endure hard things when they don't seem favorable, when they aren't what we want them to be, when they aren't in the best circumstances. That Jesus came and literally lived his life out in a way that gives us a representation on how our lives are going to be on earth. But if you don't actually understand that your life is bigger than just you, you are the benefactor of it, but you are the one that is walking in it, but other people benefit from it. And so when it comes to doing things that are hard, you have to understand that when you go through a hard situation or circumstance, you have to understand that it's not just for you. That hard situation or circumstance could be for your kids. It could be to free your family. It could be so that you can help other people in marriage. It could be that so you can help other people with their health. It could be so that you can help other people with their finances. When you go through those hardships and those situations and circumstances in life, I want to give a perspective instead of you saying this is unfavorable. I don't like this. I just don't like God. I give up, or whatever this, I give up on whatever this is. Understanding that what you're going through is to build you in spiritual maturity, and maturity in general is to give you wisdom, knowledge, and understanding on how to endure when things get hard in life. In James 1:2-4, I'll read it for you. It says, "Consider it nothing but joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you fall in various trials. Be assured that the testing of your faith through experience produces endurance, leading to spiritual maturity and inner peace. And let endurance have its perfect result, and do a thorough work, so that you may be perfect and complete, developed in your faith, lacking nothing." And so even there in James 1:2-4, understanding that when you go through various trials and tribulations, it literally says, count it all joy when you go through certain things, when you endure the hardships, and when you endure certain things that are going on in life. When you endure those things, it is not to tear you down. It is not to prevent you from getting to the promise. Now, I do want to say that the enemy's purpose is for you to not make it to the promise, because what he wants to do is to not allow what God has ordained and what God has given you approval and anointing for, what God has allowed you to walk through, so that you can allow other people to get free and get healed. The enemy's not going to want you to get there. And what a lot of us has done is that we've allowed a lot of room, and we've allowed what the enemy has thrown at us to be so gigantic that we have minimized the glorious power of God, that we have minimized what God has said. We have minimized how important it is to understand that we have help. We have the supernatural, abundant, the immutable love, favor, grace, and mercy of God that is with us. We have the strength that surpasses everything. We have abundance of strength. We have supernatural strength on our side. And so when we are enduring things that are tough and unfavorable and things that are hard, literally, when you're enduring those things and you may not have strength on your own, understanding that God literally gives us strength in those times of weakness. And just like in Isaiah 40:31, it says, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up on wings like eagles and soar. They shall walk and not be weary. They shall run and not faint. And the thing about it is that a lot of us, when things get hard, we have now taken the responsibility of God and tried to do everything in our own strength, not understanding that's not what God asked us to do. And the thing about it is that we think that God is just going to miraculously give us the strength and give us the wonder working power to continue to endure. But we have to understand that we still need to invite him in the moment. And that's the thing, is that he will come in and he will give us strength. But there comes a place, there comes a time when we step outside of God's will and we step outside of God's purpose for us, where we start to take on certain things. We start to take on things of our own. And God is like, I'm not going to help until you decide to invite me in. And I am the one that is now leading and governing and showing you that you shouldn't take this turn. You shouldn't be in this. You shouldn't be with them. You shouldn't have said this. Don't go here. Don't buy this. Until you have understood that God is a gentleman. Revelations 3:20, it literally lets us know how nice and how gentle God is. But people don't really talk about this. It says, behold, I stand at the door of the church and I continually knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with him, restore him, and he with me. And most people don't even understand. It's like that verse right there. It literally says, I stand at the door and I knock, which means he's not just going to barge in. You have to open the door. It literally talks about in Revelations 3:20, like, hey, I am at the door waiting for you to open it. But if you don't open it for me to come in and for me to prune those areas, for me to cut off the bad fruit, for me to get a hold of those areas of your life that's preventing you from getting to the promise, it's always going to be hard for you, because you're going to do it all in your own strength. You're going to continue to think. And this is one of the biggest things that the enemy has done in this current present day, is that because we live in an age to where people say grind, go get it. People are constantly telling you do this, do that, do these multiple things. You have to understand is that this is kingdom's way versus culture's way versus kingdom's way. Culture's way is pursue to get. Kingdom's way is to become and attract. But because of how things are set up in the world, we are too busy pursuing and trying to get everything, thinking that the things that we get are going to make us more fulfilled, going to make us better, going to give us more peace, going to give us more joy. Not understanding that in the kingdom of God, it is completely opposite. It is to become and attract, become more like Jesus. Watch and see how Jesus lived his life out. Jesus is our representation of God. So God, literally, Jesus's life is God in the flesh. And so how Jesus lived his life should be how we live our lives in every aspect, all the way down to not being stressed out, inner peace, well-being, how we handle conflicts, how we handle people that treat us wrong, how we handle betrayal. Jesus' life is a representation of how we should live our lives in this present day. And what happens a lot of times is that we don't, because of being in the world, remember, we are in the world, but we're not of the world. We get caught up, and it's nothing, and it's understandable why, but this is why you have to be able to understand and have to be able to have your foundation set and not pursue the things of the world. But you have to be aware of, when it comes to doing things culture's way, culture is always going to tell you, go get it. Do it on your own. You don't have to wait for this. You don't have to wait for that. While that is true for certain things, there are certain things God allows you to go through because he needs to prune you. He needs you to go through the process. So therefore he can make you more like him. There are some things God allows you to go through. So therefore it can get that stuff out of you that does not represent him. There are some things that God allows you to go through, so that their character can be developed, so that your mindset can be developed, so that your spirit can now be mature, so that you can now hear his voice, so that you can now understand his words, so that you can now prune those areas off for you that are not necessarily bad, but therefore they can bring forth more fruit, like in John 15:1. And so the situations and circumstances that you go through when things are hard, they're not just about you. It's bigger than you. You going through that situation, yes, you're the one going through it, but other people get to benefit from it. You going through it allows other people to get free. You going through it allows other people to get healed. You going through it allows other people to now gain wisdom, knowledge, and clarity without them having to go through it. And the thing about it is that because of selfishness, because of people feel like it's just only about them, they quit when things get hard. They make it their business to say, you know what, when something does not look favorable for me, I'm not going to stay here long enough. This is why a lot of people get divorces in marriage, because what happens is that they now start to focus on themselves, which is the first trick of the enemy. It is the very first thing he did in the very beginning of the Bible. Our goal was to focus on what Christ said do. You can eat from every other tree of this garden, but do not touch this tree. And the minute that the enemy got in and allowed us to focus on our selfish desires, our natural desires, once we took our focus off of what Christ said and started focusing on the things that we naturally wanted, that's when the enemy got an upper hand. That's when the enemy started. That's when his power, that's when he got an upper hand on us and started allowing us to now drift towards our natural desires. All the enemy does is take what you naturally desire and he magnifies it and uses it against you so that you can drift away from Christ. And what a lot of us don't understand is that the enemy has a customized playbook for each and every person. So what somebody may be dealing with is not what you may be dealing with. There are certain things that everybody deals with, but there's different categories of how the enemy uses those things to deal with each individual person. And so whatever the category may be, you have to reflect on your life and you have to look back and you have to think about what are some things in your life that was actually geared towards the goal, the vision, the dream and the promise and the purpose that God has given you. And you quit it. You quit because it got hard. You quit because it didn't look very favorable. You quit because it wasn't something that you thought God wanted you to go through. You quit because it was something that you didn't even want to go through yourself. Let's not over spiritualize it. Sometimes it's not always the devil. Sometimes it's not always that he's throwing stuff at us. Sometimes it's you not having enough strength and endurance to be able to go through whatever it is. Sometimes your courage isn't strong enough. Proverbs 24:10. And let's see, I'm gonna read this in the New King James Version. And so Proverbs 24:10, this is what it says. It says, if you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. And so when you hear that, most people might get a little offended by what I just said. It says, if you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is too small. So let's break down this verse. It says, if you faint in the day of adversity, that means there is a specific day that comes. It's not always the enemy. So let's not over spiritualize it. When adversity comes in life on a specific day, if you fainting literally means if you cower out, back out, or pass out, your strength is too small. And so let's not over spiritualize it. That means when adversity comes up and if you cower away, your strength in that moment was just too small. But the thing about it is that when you're operating in your own strength, of course it's going to be too small. Of course. And so what God has to do is he has to put you in situations and circumstances. He has to present certain things to you in life that allows your strength to build endurance. You have to go through certain things in order for you to be able to build the endurance to get to the goal, the vision, the purpose, and the promise that you're believing him for. And so even if you don't acknowledge it, even if you aren't aware of it, how great God is to us is that he's leading, but most people don't understand is that God still leads even though he doesn't tell you how he's leading. He promised that he'll lead you, but he never told you how he'll lead you. And so those situations and those circumstances that are sometimes unfavorable, sometimes where you think you shouldn't have to endure, where there are some times where you feel like it shouldn't be this hard, where there are some times where you feel like, okay, this is not what I expected. Sometimes God is literally right in the middle of those situations, building your spiritual maturity. He's building your endurance. He's building you up. So therefore you can look exactly like him when the time comes for you to get to the purpose and the promise. And this is something that most people don't understand, is that I said it in a previous podcast, is that the burden and the blessing coexist in the same place, that the pain and promise literally are in the same exact place. And it's not that when you get to the promise, the pain is not there. It's not that when you get the blessing, the burden is not there. It's just that one of them has now taken precedent and the other one is no longer the one that you're focusing on. And so when things become unfavorable in life, you have to understand that one is bigger than you. What you're enduring, what you're going through, how you make it out of that thing is not just for you. It's so that you can allow other people to get free. It's so that you can give other people your wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. It's so that you can allow other people to understand and become healed from what you went through. You have to understand, in order for there to be a testimony, there has to be a test. And so you going through it and making it through those trials and tribulations in life, you have to understand that it's bigger than you. God is preparing you, purifying you, and pruning you to make you in who he has called you to be for the promise. Let me phrase that. He is pruning, preparing you for the promise and what you need to be to make it to where you're asking him to go. And most of us have short-term memory when it comes to our prayers to God. We ask God to get us here, and understanding that if he's going to get us there, he has to take us through processes, steps, situations, and circumstances in order for us to be how we need to be to get to the promise. Because we have to understand that when you invite God into your prayers, you now have to understand it no longer is about you. Now it's about glorifying his name. And the Bible literally talks about how God is arrogant of us to think that God did something just for us. You have to understand that we are 1/4 of the equation. You have to understand that God does things for his glory. So when you're enduring certain things and when you're going through certain things in life, you have to understand that God allows those things, certain things to happen, and you enduring those things. And remember, I'm talking about towards the goal and the vision, towards the dream, towards the purpose, and towards the promise that you're believing God for. I'm not talking about regular things. If there's something that you know you shouldn't be doing, or something that you know is not favorable for your life and it's actually causing you to disconnect from God and driving a wedge between you and God, of course, quit it. Get away from it. But I'm talking about things that you've been praying for, that because it did not look like what you wanted it to look like and you quit. Those are the things that I'm talking about. And so in this episode, I would ask you, when things got hard, what are some things that you quit because they got hard? But that's pretty much all I got to say. I appreciate you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.